The term Scrum comes from the game of rugby and is short for scrummage, derived from scrimmage. In the context of software development, Scrum is a method of project management in an agile development process. The purpose is to keep the focus on delivering the highest business value to stakeholders in the shortest time possible. The Scrum process helps ensure that the most valuable remaining features are built next, and it emphasizes that work always be completed to the point of being deliverable. In Scrum, there are 3 core roles. The product owner represents the stakeholders and is the voice of the customer. The product owner is accountable for ensuring that the team delivers value to the business. Team members are responsible for delivering potentially shippable products. The team is composed of 3 to 9 individuals with cross-functional skills who do the actual work, that is, analyze, design, develop, test, document, etc. Scrum is facilitated by a Scrum Master who is accountable for removing impediments to the ability of the team to achieve the sprint goal and produce deliverables. The Scrum Master ensures that the Scrum process is used as intended and acts as the enforcer of Scrum rules. The core roles are the only ones who are committed to the project in the Scrum process. There are a few other roles that may have stake in the product. These stakeholders do not have any formal role in the team and are only involved in the process infrequently. Core roles are often referred to as pigs, and ancillary roles and stakeholders as chickens. From the story, The Chicken and the Pig. The chicken says, "Hey, pig, I was thinking we should open a restaurant." The pig replies, "Maybe. What would we call it?" The chicken responds, "How about ham and eggs?" The pig thinks for a moment and says, "No thanks. I'd be committed, but you'd only be involved." Using the shared vision as a starting point, the product owner is responsible for writing requirements, defects, enhancements, and features from the perspective of an end user. The product owner leads the effort in capturing user stories that express desired needs or features of the product to be built. Customers, stakeholders, business, IS, and any derivative thereof are invited to participate. The product owner uses various elicitation techniques, including JAD sessions, fishbone problem analysis, and business process re-engineering to capture the desired needs or features. These features are known as user stories. The product owner writes the user stories and often does so in front of a stakeholder group. The collection of all these user stories is called the product backlog. This product backlog can be thought of as a wish list of the customer that will make the product great. The Scrum Master facilitates the process of populating the product backlog, and when necessary, helps the product owner author user stories. Team members can help contribute input to business or technical user stories. The actual order of the creation of user stories is not important. The goal is to have enough of a backlog to conduct further planning and allow the team or teams to begin work. So, how do we write user stories? A user story describes a single feature in terms of a user interaction in a way that specifies the role, the requirement, and the purpose of a chunk of functionality. It can often have the following format. As a role, I want or need to action, so that purpose. For example, as a student, I want to purchase a parking pass so that I can drive to school. In addition, each user story has conditions of satisfaction. These conditions enable the team members to know when they have met the requirement for a user story. These are not test cases, but rather significant business acceptance criteria. In our example, conditions of satisfaction could be: only one pass for the current month is issued at a time. The student will not receive a pass if the payment is not sufficient. Or, the student may buy only one pass per month. This product backlog is the customer's wish list that will make the product great. It's a repository of everything the product owner would like to have created or built. Providing estimates in the product backlog for work that is creative and unpredictable is just plain hard. Fred Brooks of IBM said it best. He said, "It is very difficult to make a vigorous, plausible, and job-risking defense of an estimate that is derived by no quantitative method, supported by little data, and certified chiefly by the hunches of the managers." Choosing a way to do it can be equally taxing. Several valid estimation techniques are available, including expert judgment, proxy estimation based on past projects, planning poker, etc. All of these techniques require that we choose a unit of estimation and measurement. Story points are among the most effective units of estimation. Story points tell us how big a user story is relative to others, either in terms of size or complexity. When it comes to choosing numbers to represent these sizes, a modified Fibonacci sequence works best. 0, 1/2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, 40, 100. Remember that story points are relative values, not absolute. There is no direct correlation between hours and points. Story points are created by and are specific to the team that estimated them, and will likely include a degree of complexity that is understood only by the team doing the estimating. The estimation process will be facilitated by the Scrum Master. The product owner reads the user story, together with the conditions of satisfaction, to the team, and begins a conversation to put the user story into context. The product owner will answer questions, clarify expectations, and provide explanations about what exactly this story entails. The Scrum Master can add these details as discussions proceed and jot down things to be remembered when implementing this story. These can be bullet points on the story card. Design. What will we have to learn before we can start work on this story? Coding. How much code will need to be written for this story? Have we written similar code before? Testing. Will any special mockup, that is, mock data, objects, etc., be required to unit test this story? Integration points. Does this user story have external dependencies? Expertise. Has any one of us done a similar user story before? Note that the above discussion should not take more than several minutes per story. Newly formed teams may take longer in the beginning. To begin relatively estimating the story, every team member pulls out their estimate card so no one else can see it. After everyone has picked their estimate card, they are revealed at the same time. If everyone is holding the same number, we're done. This is established as the relative estimate of the story. If estimate cards are different, we discuss it. Let's look at the first example. Our team members hold up 3, 5, 8, and 13. At this point, we want to hear from the outliers, 3 and 13. Why a 3 and why a 13? Anyone from the team who will participate in completing the story can talk and ask questions. The team member holding the 13 could say, "I am a developer and this is going to be really hard to code. I need to set up a database, set up the environment, and so on." The team member holding the 3 could say, "You are right, and I'm going to come up in my estimates. But I have done this type of coding before, and it's really not that hard." After everyone has a chance to talk, each team member picks a number again from the card deck, and then all at once, the cards are revealed. This time, let's say we get an 8, 8, 8, and a 13. At this point, the Scrum Master will ask the team member holding a 13 to explain why a 13. If agreeable to the team, everyone switches to 13. This is not a vote, and the majority does not rule. Team members keep going until the consensus is reached. Once the team agrees on the estimate, the Scrum Master will mark the user story card with the estimate number, and the product owner will put it back on the backlog in no particular order. One challenge with relative estimation is how to get started and which story to pick first. As a team, identify one of the smallest stories for one of the smallest sizes, usually size 2. This story can be either one from the current product backlog or a different story that was done earlier. Prioritizing a product backlog is one big beast that has been elaborated on extensively in the software industry. After the team completes populating and estimating the product backlog, the next step is to determine the logical sequence to build or implement the user stories. The product owner is responsible for prioritizing the product backlog and ensuring that the team delivers to the customers the most valuable functionality first. Defects, enhancements, new features are all treated equally, and the product owner can use different color cards to indicate these. There are many factors that drive the product backlog prioritization, ranging from business value, cost and effort of implementation, risk and opportunity costs, complexity and difficulty to implement, third parties or vendor involvement, compliance requirements and dependencies, etc. The product owner will group the stories into high, medium, and low categories. Arriving at the correct set of prioritization is not easy. It takes a lot of negotiation with different stakeholders and users of the systems to arrive at the final priority list. There are several techniques the product owner can leverage, including Moscow rules for affinity analysis, business value-based prioritization, technology risk-based prioritization, etc. After grouping the user stories into high, medium, and low category, the product owner will organize the user stories in priority order, ranking the highest priority stories first. Medium and low priority stories can remain in the backlog without being ranked. The Scrum Master facilitates the process by working closely with the product owner and does not directly prioritize the backlog. Team members are typically observers and may offer input if requested. A good product backlog is at the heart of any well-functioning Agile team and has the following characteristics. It is prioritized to ensure that the team builds the most important features first. It is estimated by the team to give the product owner clarity and enabling him to answer questions such as, when will these stories be done? It includes all the work necessary to complete the project. And it is constantly changing and evolving to reflect the current realities of the project. The product owner is responsible for planning and populating the release backlog and to ensure that the team delivers to the customer the most valuable functionality first. The product owner takes input from stakeholders and business to plan the release. Team members provide IS contextual input, but only upon request from the product owner. The Scrum Master facilitates the process of building the release backlog. The user stories must be sized before they can be brought into a release. The product owner identifies user stories from the product backlog that would go into the release backlog. User stories are then pulled from the product backlog and moved to the release backlog. The Scrum Master works closely with the product owner to understand the planned value of the release. The Scrum Master begins to derive an initial set of candidate impediments or risks that will need to be mitigated prior to and during the release. This might include coordination and communication efforts with other IS stakeholders. The release backlog will change during the whole project as new knowledge becomes available. The release plan should be revisited and updated in regular intervals after each sprint. The product owner prioritizes the release backlog prior to the sprint planning exercise. During sprint planning, the Scrum team makes a commitment to the product owner to implement the user stories during the sprint. The Scrum Master facilitates the process of planning the sprint and ensures the team does not pull more user stories into the sprint backlog than the past average velocity of the team, if it exists. The Scrum team moves the agreed sprint user stories to the sprint backlog. Team members ask clarifying questions of the product owner when necessary to further understand the details regarding the user story, and the Scrum Master facilitates the team and product owner discussions. Team members can nominate, when applicable, specific technical user stories that help the project progress forward, and communicate these technical needs and their importance to the product owner. Once a sprint has started, the product owner may not add or change anything to the sprint backlog, and the Scrum Master protects the team from interference from outsiders while working within the sprint. If the team indicates that it has excess bandwidth during the sprint, the product owner may suggest to the team which additional user stories to pull. In this activity, the team collectively identifies as many known tasks as necessary to implement each user story in the sprint. It may not be a complete list of tasks, but should be enough to start estimation, planning, and commitment. Tasks should include the entire life cycle and not just code development. Tasks do not always have to specifically result in software code if the resulting artifact has value to the team and eventually contributes to the goal of working software. Tasks should be directly associated either with a user story or a spike. Tasks can be preparatory work for a future sprint that must be started early and realized later. The product owner provides any point of clarification as requested by the team. The Scrum Master facilitates the session, ensuring that each user story has enough tasks associated based upon a team consensus. The Scrum Master guides the team to ensure that, when identifying the tasks, they are not too large. If necessary, the Scrum Master facilitates breaking up large tasks into smaller ones, to preferably 8 hours or less per task. In this activity, each team member self-selects and self-assigns the tasks that he or she will perform during the sprint to implement one or more user stories. All estimates for the tasks are provided in ideal hours, and the team member marks the task card with their initials and estimated hours. The product owner answers or clarifies any questions the team member may have to help the team member estimate task hours. The team plans out a minimum of 3 to 4 business days of tasks and the order in which they would be done. The Scrum Master ensures that all of the tasks have an owner assigned and ensures that each task is estimated in hours. The Scrum Master also ensures that the total number of hours estimated by the team does not exceed the available hours the team can actually commit. The team will constantly update the tasks they are working on. Before starting a new task, a team member moves the task from the To Do to the In Progress column. For ongoing tasks, the team member updates the hours remaining on the task. Tasks that require any validation will be moved to the To Verify column, and ones that are completed will be moved to the Done column. In the daily stand-up, The team members communicate their progress to each other, make commitments, and identify any impediments. The goal of a stand-up meeting is to last no more than 15 minutes. The team members will answer 3 essential questions. What did I do yesterday? What will I do today? What is blocking me from completing my task or tasks? The team members listen to the other team members so that they can relate to his or her tasks. They offer to assist other team members if needed. They nominate and communicate any new identified task or tasks to the team. The Scrum Master ensures that the stand-up is completed in 15 minutes and listens for blockers identified as impediments. The Scrum Master also ensures that the stand-up does not devolve into a status meeting or fall into a tangent. The product owner is typically an observer and may communicate informational updates that help the team progress forward. The product owner is available to help clarify questions from the team. The sprint review is held at the end of every sprint and is where the team demonstrates what it has accomplished during the sprint. The sprint review meeting typically lasts 1 to 2 hours, depending on the length of the sprint. Participants in the sprint review typically include the product owner, the Scrum team, the Scrum Master, management, stakeholders, customers, end users, and developers from other projects. The Scrum Master schedules and facilitates the meeting and owns the agenda. One or more of the team members participate directly in performing the demo. Others attempt to answer stakeholders' questions and elaborate as necessary. Most Agile teams will ask customers to accept the work right then and there, as it is potentially shippable at this point. Some customers, however, may want time to use the application before pushing it out, especially before the release date. So, some teams opt to give their customers up to a week to formally accept the work. It is very important to get acceptance. Seeing and interacting with real software leads to new insights. The stakeholders might want new features or enhancements, or realize a corrective change in direction is needed. Stakeholders can either indicate their agreement with the demo right then and there, or ask for changes, which would become new user stories for the backlog. The sprint retrospective occurs on the last day of the sprint, usually after the sprint demo meeting, and will typically last 1 hour. The purpose of the sprint retrospective is to identify the things that the team is doing well and hence should keep doing, things they should start doing in order to improve, and things that are keeping them from performing at their best, and hence should stop doing. The team will typically answer 3 questions. What went well during this sprint? What didn't go so well during this sprint? What can we do better next time? This is a mandatory activity to provide a continuous feedback loop. It is not a traditional lessons learned, which may or may not be realized. The meeting is facilitated by the Scrum Master, and the product owner is also present.